we're going to spend the most of the time talking in this podcast about just how philanthropic giving, how these types of commitments can help better align your business with your customer base. And it's something that I think, you see sometimes the headlines pop up with, certain B corporations or companies that have unique models that have kind of giving built in. But the way that you all approach this, I think, is a very accessible way to build giving into the any business model. So I guess the first thing I would say is, how have you seen in your experience across your membership, the philanthropic giving really just levels up the relationship with someone's customers?
It's a really, really great question, because customers are, and the data supports this, lots of different data supports this. Customers are really interested in businesses that are using their business to drive change. And so, businesses that are putting solar panels on their warehouses, that are cleaning up their supply chain, all of that is super important and kind of difficult to communicate sometimes. So what we have learned through our work with our business members over the last 20 years is that one of the really powerful points of giving is that it's a great bridge to communicate an environmental commitment to customers. So what people, because that's really what customers are, is people, often they want data, but they also want and need stories to help them make sense of that data, to help them sort of incorporate it into their kind of understanding. And also people make emotional decisions too. So giving, and I want to say more about the power of giving beyond just storytelling, but giving is a really important way in which stories and real authentic communication about an environmental commitment can be kind of in the wheelhouse of any business when they do it. The other thing I do want to say about giving is it's not just a storytelling tool. It's a way that businesses can expand their scope of impact. And that's pretty fundamental to what we believe at 1% for the Planet. So, businesses operate in an environment where they're sort of working within the market, which has a lot of space, but it's still, bounded. They're working within the market to do what they do, to create their product or their service, to generate a profit, to generate resources, to do business. Nonprofits operate where there isn't a market, where there isn't maybe a market yet, or there may never be a market, and they are operating in order to drive impact and to, plow any resources back into driving positive impact in whatever way their mission directs. So when a business gives to a nonprofit, they're immediately expanding the scope in which they are driving impact. And so, within their business, they may invest in solar panels or clean up their supply chain. And that's awesome. And that's all within the market. And we need every business to do that. And we also need and want businesses to step outside of that space to drive even more change through this nonprofit sector that's operating where there is no market. And as an added bonus, they get the ability to really deepen their connection with customers because of the stories of that on the ground impact.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been talking about, I guess, to use a sort of an analogy in our product, is when people put data into the product, we want to multiply the output of whatever they put in. So they give us a little bit and we seemingly multiply it to create more. And I think that's kind of what giving to a nonprofit from a business looks like, is you're multiplying impact by having this whole separate organization that's 100% focused on this other thing, create more than you could with those same resources. Am I saying that well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add too, that what you're doing too is, again, you're taking those resources in the sphere in which you can generate them and saying, we're going to expand our impact by putting them into this other sphere, other sector. I was going to say the other thing too, that we really believe, when you think about it this way, you kind of shift how you think about philanthropy. So a lot of times people hear philanthropy and they think of like galas or like kind of traditional, sometimes boring ways of approaching having some money left over at the end of the year, and kind of making that decision game time based on what you have in the bank. What we're saying is no, build it into your operating model, build it into your strategy, build it into your brand, and then really think of it differently, as not just a nice to have at the end of the year, but as something that's core to how you deliver a good product, good service, relate to your customers, build your whole strategy. And then it becomes, you can then talk about it like, okay, you pay your rent, you pay your employees, And you wouldn't think of not doing those things. You couldn't run a business if you didn't. And you pay for the impact that you are having, and you pay for creating a thriving future so that businesses and communities can continue to thrive. So it moves into the center of the operations of the business.
Just part of the DNA, part of what we do.